Hello dear viewers, and you're mostly welcome to this program, The International Sphere. And today it's another week, and of course here on the set I'm joined by the Ambassador of the United States to Tanzania, His Excellency Donald Wright, and together with me he's going to focus on 60 years of the US-Tanzania partnership under the Pamoja 60. This is the theme, of course, which is recognized for this whole occasion. Mr. Ambassador, please welcome here on the set, and I feel privileged to have you here on the set.
Oh, and thank you, Agnes. It truly is a privilege to be with you today to talk about the 60-year relationship between the United Republic of Tanzania and the United States. You know, it actually was 60 years ago this month that for the first time ever, your new president, President Nyerere, flew to the United States and had a one-on-one conversation with our president, President Kennedy.
Right then, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was through that experience that I think President Kennedy and the American people developed such a deep admiration and strong respect for the Tanzanian people, which ultimately resulted in a commitment to the development of this country. And with that commitment to development has remained unwavering for the past 60 years. And there are so many examples of what we've accomplished by working together. By locking arms and working together, we can accomplish anything. In the early days with President Nyerere, I know infrastructure was a major problem, and the United States stepped in and helped build kilometers, hundreds of kilometers of roads. The Tanzanian-Zambian highway is an example of that, which not only built the infrastructure, but also provided a pathway for agricultural products to enter the international market. And your first president was such an advocate for education as a teacher himself. He wanted access to high-quality education for all Tanzanians. And you know, the United States over the last 60 years has really sent thousands of Peace Corps volunteers to work in the remotest areas of this country as teachers, English, science, math, where they're most needed. But I'd also say in the area of education, it's not limited to teachers, that we have helped build some institutes of higher learning. I think the teacher school here in Dar es Salaam and the one in Iringa are part of this development assistance that we provided. An agricultural university, a public administration institute, and then another school that focuses on wildlife management. And for every administration since the Nyerere administration, there's evidence of our unwavering commitment to the development of this country.
Thank you very much for that very good explanation, but I'll get back to that concerning the Pamoja 60. Mr. Ambassador, if I ask you, you have been here, you came here in 2020 as the Ambassador of the United States to Tanzania. That's when you submitted your credentials here, and of course to the government of Tanzania. And if I may ask you now, during the time that I understand in the early years you have been here to Tanzania, working as an expert in health, of course. So my question to you is, kindly just share with us your experience, of course, the past and the present experience during the time here in Tanzania.
Agnes, happy to do so. You're absolutely right. This is my second time to work in Tanzania. By background, I'm a medical doctor, and I came to Tanzania 33 years ago, very much at the dawn of my medical career, to serve as a voluntary physician on the island of Zanzibar in the Mnazi Moja Hospital, the pediatric wing. I worked alongside a British physician treating malnutrition and malaria and so many of the chronic childhood diseases. Much has changed since that time. I recently visited the same hospital again and retoured the ward that I'd worked in 30 years ago. Let me say the one thing that has not changed. 30 years ago, I developed such a respect and admiration for the Tanzanian people. I found them to be warm, outgoing. They always seem to treat strangers like a member of their family, and they're eternally optimistic. And although the infrastructure is much different, tourism is much different on Zanzibar, the attitudes of the Tanzanian people has not changed over that 30-year period of time.
You have mentioned concerning the you have announced, of course, the Pamoja 60 celebrations for the 60 years between the relationship between diplomatic, of course, relationship between Tanzania and the United States. Mr. Ambassador, if I may ask you, what will be the activities be carried out during this period of time in celebrating or in celebrations for these 60 years between the two countries?
Yes, Agnes, happy to share that with you. As I mentioned earlier, 60 years ago this month began the relationship with that visit between President Nyerere and President Kennedy. For the next 6 months of this year, we are going to be focusing on highlighting much of the good work and the strong bilateral relationship that exists between the United States and the United Republic of Tanzania. We'd encourage your viewers to stay tuned to our social media channels, and we will continue to highlight those areas of engagement, whether it's in health, education, agriculture. There are many examples that point to our strong relationship.
Talking of Tanzania itself, you have been here, it's almost a year, I should put it this way. Tanzania has gone through a leadership transition, and of course, in your own take, what can you say on the action that have been taken by the president in power here in Tanzania, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, in the action that she has been taking in her very first 100 days?
Well, first of all, let me say, I think that the United States was shocked and saddened by the untimely passing of President Magufuli, and certainly we want to extend our condolences to his family, his friends, his colleagues, and the many Tanzanians that are mourning his loss. That said, I think we've been very impressed with the work of President Samia. She oversaw and led a peaceful transition of power from one administration to another, and that's one of those hallmarks of strong democratic institutions, and we're very pleased to see that. On the policy front, likewise, we've been encouraged in so many ways. Her efforts to reach out to regional partners, whether it's Kenya or Uganda, is really refreshing to see, and she also is engaged on the international scene. I know the American and businessmen are very excited to see her work to create a more favorable business environment. Yeah. We're thrilled to see her release some of the regulations as it relates to civil society organizations and the media. So overall, we're very optimistic in what we've seen in the first 100 days of President Samia Suluhu Hassan's administration.
Let's now get back to the devastating pandemic, COVID-19, that has been, a problem to the whole world. There's so many countries, if I've said, of course, the whole world, that they're experiencing devastation situations concerning the disease itself. Yeah. So, talking about your country itself, the United States. What is the situation like now concerning COVID-19, and what measures that your government has taken in making sure that it protects the people of the United States away from the infection?
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. The United States has been significantly affected by the global COVID pandemic. I think to date we've lost over 600,000 Americans to COVID. We've had over 33 million cases of COVID in our country, and so we have suffered as a result of that. I will say that things are getting better, and I really tie the improvement that we're seeing in the United States to the uptake of vaccination. As of today, about 67% of our population has received at least one vaccination from COVID. And we know from studies, even among our nursing homes, that infection rates drop dramatically after populations have been immunized, sometimes well over 90%. And in a nursing home situation, that's so important because those are the most vulnerable people in our population.
Still within the COVID-19 pandemic, it has this negative and both social and economic. Now, talking about your country again, concerning the slowing down of the economic in your country, what do you have to say about that?
No question that the pandemic has had a negative economic impact on the United States and virtually every country in the world. Certainly as it relates to tourism, And we've seen that here in Tanzania as well, that the tourism industry has been devastated. But as individuals adopted our public health recommendations of staying homes, avoiding large crowds, it's affected other industries as well, such as restaurants and other venues. Some businesses have been forced to close due to this economic downturn. I will say it is heartening to see now that our immunization rate is increasing, that the economy is beginning to generate speed and to grow once again. And we look forward to the future when things will return more to a sense of normalcy as it relates to the economy.
And what is your assessment, Mr. Ambassador, now talking about the COVID-19 here in Tanzania? How do you see the government of Tanzania dealing with this pandemic?
You know, this is an issue that is very dear to my heart as a physician. And let me say, I was so thrilled and impressed that President Samia looked to an expert panel of some of the brightest scientific minds here in Tanzania to give her advice of what the government should do as it relates to COVID-19. Recently, as you know, the panel released their recommendations, and I was pleased not only to see that the President received those recommendations, but accepted them. And I stand fully supportive of the recommendations that were made as it relates to public health measures of avoiding large crowds, social distancing, good hand washing, and the adoption of masks in appropriate setting. Very, very appropriate. I was also thrilled to see that they encouraged the public reporting of COVID cases, which allows us to understand the progression of COVID within country, but also to highlight those hot spots or troubled areas for increased intervention. And then the recommendation that I most stand behind is the encouragement to bring immunizations to Tanzania so that they can, if interested, avail themselves of this protective measure.
Talking about the U.S., the United States of America, that it has also, we have also witnessed the transition of presidential transition to now it's Joe Biden's administration, and of course what vision it has to Tanzania and of course Africa in general. What is your perspective?
Yes, great question, Agnes, and I'm very pleased to say, and I'll put it simply, Africa is a priority for the Biden administration. There are so many examples of that. You probably know that one of his first large presentations was actually to the African Union in February, approximately a month after he was inaugurated. And he made it clear that Africa is going to be a priority and that he wants to re-engage the entire African continent moving forward. I think you'll see more evidence of that once the administration has more time to adopt programs and to interact with the various countries within the AU.
Africa is a priority in what areas or in what sectors that the U.S. will be engaging fully, especially here in Tanzania?
Great question. And what comes to mind immediately is COVID and immunizations. I think the United States has made the largest donation of any country in the world to providing free vaccine to under-resourced countries. President Biden promised to buy over 500 million doses of vaccine that they would distribute to under-resourced countries over the next 6 to 12 months. In addition, we're going to be releasing some of our stockpiles of vaccine to under-resourced countries. So in the area of COVID, there is going to be a great deal of work. But let me tell you, we haven't abandoned any of those areas that we've worked in for the last 60 years, be it agriculture, education, democracy and human rights, good governance, all those sort of issues will continue. But clearly, for the next several months, we will be working with Tanzania and countries across the world to try to end this pandemic that has caused such human and societal problems.
Of course, talking of agriculture sector, for Tanzania, agriculture is the backbone of the economy of this country, almost 75%, and the rest goes to 25%. Now, how has the U.S. now looked into that area? Of course, talking of issues of irrigation, because we're still having the local traditional type of agriculture. So how have you also looked into that area to make sure that we improve on that sector?
Thanks for the question, Agnes. And there's no question that for the last several decades, USAID, through the Feed the Futures campaign, has worked with the farmers across Tanzania to try to increase their production of high-income crops to increase their income moving forward. Certainly increasing production is part of the issue, and irrigation, as you mentioned, is important, as is fertilizer. But also I think we've worked on the other side of the equation to make sure that there's markets available to accept these agricultural products. The AGOA agreement allows Tanzania to sell many of their products in the American market with very favorable tax benefits.
Let's get back now to you as a health expert. Of course, you're a medical doctor. You came here to Tanzania almost 30 years back, and now you're here. You managed to visit Nazi Moja Hospital, where you once worked during the time when you're volunteering. Now, what challenges do you still see there in that particular hospital or within the health sector itself?
Great question. Well, I think it would be important for me to talk about the progress that I've seen in the 30 years, and then I'll move on to what are the areas that we need to focus on moving forward. I was amazed at the enlargement, the enhancement to the Nazi Moja Hospital over the past 30 years. The ward that I used to take care of pediatrics has now been completely remodeled and refurbished to take care of cancer patients, and a whole separate wing has been set up for the pediatric population. So it was good to see that much of the infrastructure has been improved over that period of time. And along with the infrastructure comes the technology that I think is so important to taking good care of patients. What do I think the needs are moving forward? Well, like so much of the rest of the world, having trained healthcare professionals available at the ready to staff these good facilities continues to be a problem. And I also think here in Tanzania, the infrastructure is highly varied. In the more rural areas, there certainly continues to be a need for more clinics, more laboratories, more hospitals, where in larger cities such as Dar or Zanzibar, perhaps that need is not as great. So both infrastructure as it relates to hospitals and clinics, but also making sure that there is a ready supply of healthcare workers to staff those institutions to provide care to the Tanzanian citizen.
Let's now talk about malaria. You've mentioned of the issue of malaria. Of course, we have the issue of malnutrition and stunting, which is also a big issue here in Tanzania. Since the time you were here, you also came across all these issues. Now, again, looking at the issues that I've asked you here concerning malaria, the issue of malnutrition, and stunting altogether, apart from you being the head of mission here, but of course, as a medical doctor.
Thank you so much for that question. And I have to say that malaria is one of the bright spots in our bilateral relationship. I just returned from Zanzibar, and I treated so many children that were suffering from very severe malaria when I was here 30 years ago. And through ongoing efforts with the U.S. government as it relates to insecticides and bed nets, the prevalence of malaria is less than 1%. We are very close to eradication of malaria on the island of Zanzibar, which would be a huge public health success. We're seeing improvements on the mainland as well. I think over the last 10 years there's been a 10% reduction in malaria on the mainland, but there is more work to be done. We have the right formula, we just need to implement it fully so that fewer and fewer Tanzanians develop malaria, and hopefully one day there's eradication in this country.
Great. Business and trade altogether seems also to be one of your priorities. How do you think you're going to convince the government of Tanzania working together with the United States? Of course, the United States, we believe it's the big power, of course, compared to Tanzania. And sometimes it's quoted saying that the big powers dominate, the small countries that are, developing countries. So again, what is your take on that?
You're absolutely right that business is one of my priorities, my second priority. And I really divide it into two categories. One is I want to promote U.S. investment in country, and the other is that I want to promote reciprocal trade between Tanzania and the United States. As it relates to trade, I would love to see more Tanzanian goods on the shelves of the American marketplace, be it coffee, be it cashews, cotton, chocolate, tea, many of the things that you're known for. I would love to see those on the, in the markets of America. And likewise, I'd like to see more American products here. I think there's a huge opportunity with AGOA that I mentioned earlier to move Tanzanian products to the American marketplace with very favorable tax standpoint. As it relates to American investment in country, the leadership that I've talked to over the last 4 or 5 months is strongly supportive of American investment in country. In many ways, it's a win-win situation. It brings needed capital and finances to this country. It decreases unemployment, increases so many Tanzanian employment. It brings innovation. So all that is a win for the country that is investing in Tanzania, but also a huge win for Tanzania.
The issue of empowering youth is one of the priority or the top of the agenda to the country of the United States, and of course vice versa to Tanzania too. How do you see the future of the youth in both countries? Of course, it's very hard to make a comparison. Yes, because it depends on so many issues, economic-wise, social-wise, and so forth.
Let me say we do think that youth empowerment is a major priority to the U.S. government moving forward. And I think it's the demographics of your country that makes us focus on that area. In reality, 2/3 of your population is age 26 or less. So it shows you that there is a very large amount of young people that will be entering adulthood over the next few years. And the United States wants to do whatever we can to help with vocational training and other educational opportunities to make sure that these young Tanzanians have the skill set that they need to find good employment in the Tanzania of tomorrow. I know that Tanzania, and they should be congratulated, recently moved into the lower middle income standards and wants to move even higher on that. The youth of this country can be the engine for that economic growth if they are properly trained and have the skill set necessary for a growing economy. And the United States wants to partner hand in hand with Tanzania to help that occur.
As we are winding up, Mr. Ambassador, talking of the theme Pamoja 60, your message to Tanzanians who are watching you at the moment, just talk to them.
Oh, absolutely. Let me say I'm so supportive of the Pamoja 60 campaign. We're going to be highlighting the tremendous relationship that we've had with Tanzania for the past 60 years. And there's so many of examples of that, from the agriculture industry to health to education, to marginalized populations, democracy, human rights, safety and security. The list is endless, and let me tell you that our commitment to Tanzania is unwavering. I am going to build on the good work that the previous 18 ambassadors did here in Tanzania. We have a strong bilateral relationship with Tanzania, but I'm committed to making it even stronger moving forward. Rest assured, you have a friend, Tanzanians have a friend in the United States.
Mr. Ambassador, asante sana for your time.
Thank you very much, Agnes.